Yo, fellow Game of Thrones nerds, this week we're going to be talking about episode 5 of season 5, Kill the Boy. We'll talk about the major plot points, storylines, the major takeaways from the episode, how it ties into last week, how it diverges from the books just a little bit, and I look forward to a discussion about what you think is going to happen going forward. So, let's get started. So if you haven't seen my last video on episode 4, Sons of the Harpy, click here to watch that before you watch this one. We opened the episode with Sir Barristan, and he is in fact dead. This does confirm what I thought last week. He's not dead in the books yet. The actor also did some interviews confirming that as well. But Grey Worm did in fact live, which is a good thing. So I said that last week. I thought Grey Worm might have been just injured. I was sure Sir Barristan was dead. And again, I kind of understand with the TV diverging from the books because they're kind of making room for Sir Jorah and Tyrion on their way to see Dany. I mean, I understand why it's got to be done, although I hate to see it. At least he took some Harpy bastards with him. And another big takeaway while we're over in Marine with Dany is the Hisdar storyline. So Dany is apparently going to wed him, which I don't understand. Now, I understand in the books that it was the same thing, slightly different, where he actually proposed that marriage and she thought that it would be a good idea to join houses to gain control of the city Marine, but it just kind of pisses me off because her long-term goal is Westeros and the Seven Kingdoms. So I don't see a need for her to betroth herself to somebody. And yes, in the books he did have a bigger role. He's a more influential character, but in the show he's not. He was essentially just a former master of apparently at least a pretty influential house as far as the show is concerned. So I just can't see this being a normal wedding where they stay for years and years and live there in Marine ruling. I think she's using him as a means to an end. She definitely looks like to be the dominatrix in this relationship anyway. So I really don't like that at all. And there's also still something with Hisdar. He still may be the lead Harpy. Some people think it's this woman who they showed in an earlier episode where the Harpies attacked some of the Second Sons, where it looked like she had helped set up the ambush on Grey Worm and the little group of Unsullied. That's a possibility. I mean, there was a reason they panned in on her face when she looked like she was crying, then she all of a sudden stopped crying and had kind of a shit-eating grin kind of look on her face. But we'll see where that goes, and we know there's going to be more Harpy attacks coming just due to the season preview, but we'll see how he fits in, if he's kind of controlling the whole thing or at least helping organize the Harpies. Also with Dany, she agreed to reopen the fighting pits when she was proposing the deal with Hisdar. We kind of know what that's setting up for. We're going to see at some point Sir Jorah back in the fighting pits as well, and her being attacked by the Harpy in the middle. We've all seen the preview. And I believe that may be the point where they have Drogon swoop down and burn the hell out of everybody, and she possibly rides off for the first time. So I don't know if we'll see that, if they would want to go that far this season with her actually riding a dragon. So I also loved where Dany took the former masters down to see Rhaegal and Viserion and just kind of picked one out to be sacrificed to show her strength to the group. I thought that was a fucking awesome scene. Finally getting to see a little more dragon action, although they're still chained up, and you know, I'm like, set them free. I mean, Drogon's flying around. He's obviously killing things and eating them. Fuck it. I mean, let them go. I mean, they're dragons. The next big takeaway for me would be the Master Aemon scene. So Master Aemon's talking to Sam in the library, and he's talking about how Dany is alone over there. It's the last Targaryen. He's his last relative. He's reading a note apparently from a raven. So that makes you question, all right, first of all, he still has contact with somebody sending him updates. The only person I can think of would be Varys, still sending notes to Master Aemon, since he is apparently part of this Targaryen restoration. And as I mentioned last week in the episode 4 review, I think they pretty much sealed the deal with the R+L=J theory pertaining to Jon Snow's parentage, and this just did it again. This was kind of, for me at least, the final nail in the coffin, because he's sitting there talking to Sam and he's mentioning how he's his last relative and he's too old to really do anything about it, and she's over there and she needs counsel and that type of thing. She's all alone. It's kind of the last Targaryen. Then of course Jon Snow walks in right at that moment. So that was no accident. I mean, that was the final nail in the coffin that pretty much proves to me that he is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Then we come to Stannis. You can't hate Stannis anymore. You know, at first he was kind of just a cold character. You didn't hate him, you didn't love him, but you were kind of pissed off that he was just kind of cold to his wife and daughter. Then of course last week, you know, you had the scene with him and Shireen, and he really kind of showed his soft side. So you're kind of starting to pull for Stannis. You know, they're kind of setting him up to be kind of a savior, a quote-unquote good guy. if Game of Thrones has any good guys. You know, and he sees something in Jon Snow, he admires him. You know, he's working with Jon Snow, which could be a little foreshadowing there. I mean, he's one of the Iron Throne himself, and he also goes in there and has a little scene with Sam as well in the library where he kind of gives him props, you know, for killing a White Walker, and he asks him how he did it. He tells him to keep studying, and that we'll need to know why that obsidian or dragon glass killed a White Walker. And he's actually trying to do it to protect the realm. I mean, that's one thing that's, I guess, a quality you could say that's missing from most of the other characters that are lusting for the Iron Throne, is they do it for pure power. He seems to be doing it because he actually gives a damn about the realm. So now Jon Snow, should call him Jon Targaryen, has an agreement with Tormund Giantsbane to go to Hardhome with him using Stannis' ships to convince the wildlings to come back and join them in exchange for land and becoming citizens in the realm. And so this is going to splinter the Night's Watch. I mean, you got half the Night's Watch that'll follow Jon Snow into Hell and back, and you got half the Night's Watch that now hate him because they feel like he's a sympathizer, which is understandable to a degree. They've essentially fought the wildlings for 8,000 years, but Jon sees that, you know, that's got to come to an end at some point. At some point you have to make peace for the greater good, and he is now of the opinion that they were just born on the wrong side of the wall. People have to kind of understand that he's looking at the bigger picture, which is the sign of a true leader, versus just the current situation and getting, you know, immediate revenge, which is just going to repeat a cycle. That's Jon being a leader. This was show Kill the Boy, essentially named for that speech that Maester Aemon gave to Jon, and was saying kill the boy figuratively, of course, and let the man live. But it also goes into a little bit of, could be taken literally in some cases, which is my next point, being the Winterfell situations. You have Ramsay and Rose down in Winterfell. They're aware that Stannis means to take the north. I expected Ramsay to continue his little bullshit facade in front of Sansa for at least a little while, but he's acting like the bastard that he is. It was awesome to finally see Sansa have a little smirk on her face when Roose and Walda announced that they're having a child, and a male child, which will be the actual heir. So the title Kill the Boy can now in that sense be taken literally. So I mean, he's definitely going to make a move to get rid of that because he sees that as a problem. And Sansa actually took a little pleasure out of seeing him kind of worry about that. But with the Sansa piece, I'm still a little disappointed so far, because even though she's changed her look and she's been talking to Littlefinger and she is playing the game a little bit, she's still coming off as kind of just this weak girl to me. I know it's too early, there's still a lot of shit to come this year. She runs back into Theon, now Reek, but I understand her emotions as well. Theon did betray her brother. He was doing it to impress his father, and she may not know the whole story with that, so she wants revenge on him, I'm sure, but at the same time, he is an ally in her current situation. So again, I mentioned in the last video, I think we're going to see Theon come back at some point, and not necessarily Reek. Metaphorically speaking, I think Theon is starting to kind of come back again with memories after running into Sansa in the kennels, and then of course in the dining hall when Walda announced that she was having a child. Also loved that Sansa met Miranda while she was walking around the old tower, which is where Bran fell out. So immediately when you saw that scene, you thought back to season 1 when Bran got pushed out of the window by Jaime Lannister. Miranda comes out to start trouble. So Miranda is going to stir up some shit. She kicked that off by going out and reminding Sansa of things, and reminding of her family and her father, and then taking her to see Theon. When I saw that, the first thing I thought was somebody's getting pushed out that damn window. I would love to see at some point that Sansa pushed Miranda out the window. Or it could be that Ramsay tries to do something to Walda. I got a feeling they didn't just show that for a reason. Yet you could see her thinking back to Bran, but that was to me a little foreshadowing that somebody's coming out that damn window. This time it's not going to be a Stark. And then the major takeaway for me was the Tyrion Jorah plotline. Still traveling to Meereen to see Dany, and they go through fucking Old Valyria. It was the baddest scene. If you hadn't read the books, you may not have been as excited about it. So if you read the books, and this right here, The World of Ice and Fire, which is essentially the history of Westeros and all the backstories and stuff that you don't get in the books or the show. The backstories, the history of Westeros back to the first men and the children of the forest, and all the history written by a maester. So definitely pick that up or download it if you can. I highly recommend it for any fans of the show. You just get a whole nother sense of what's going on when you know a little bit of history of the show and the books as well. So this was, to me, a badass scene because it doesn't happen in the books. In the books, they go straight to Meereen, and I didn't honestly think we would ever see that in this show. They've taken a couple storylines from the books and combined them to Jorah, and it was just a badass, epic-looking scene to me, especially when Tyrion shit his pants when he looked up and saw Drogon flying over. Jorah was not surprised, but he was probably surprised at his size, because that motherfucker is big now. But Tyrion What was cool about that, and again it goes back to having a little bit of knowledge of the history and in the books as well, we know from the show that Tyrion reads a lot, because you had at season 1 when Jon Snow was going to the wall, you had him and Tyrion sitting there talking when they were camping that night on the way, and he asked why he read so many books, and he was basically explaining, hey, you have your sword, I have my mind. It just reminds you of the books where Tyrion, when he was a child, he had dragon dreams, which is a trait of the Targaryens, and he's always reading up on dragon lore and history. The other piece of that is Jorah getting grayscale, so it looks like that they're combining a few character storylines into Ser Jorah, and that's the Young Griff character. I won't go into much detail here. There's a lot of videos, and maybe I'll do a separate one on Young Griff, and I'll just say that Young Griff gets grayscale, not Ser Jorah. Also kind of cool that it showed the Stone Men. You know, you had seen Shireen and heard the stories about how Stannis brought in all the Maesters to heal her, and they did. So that doesn't necessarily mean Ser Jorah is sentenced to die now. He immediately had a little patch of grayscale on his arm, when in the books it takes a few weeks for you to start showing up like that. So again, another deviation for the books, but overall I thought it was a great scene. It was my favorite of the season so far, seeing Tyrion look up and have that connection with an actual dragon. Again, in the books, this doesn't happen. Nobody goes to Old Valyria, except Tyrion does have an uncle that does, to look for the ancestral sword of the Lannisters. So yeah, again, let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite scene? What were your takeaways? And do you feel also that that kind of sealed the Jon Snow theory with him walking in behind Sam and Maester Aemon when they were having a conversation about Dany being the last Targaryen? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate all the likes, the shares, and the comments. Click here for my last video, episode 4. Comment below. Hit me up on Twitter and let me know what you guys think. And I'm Chris the Smokescreen. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey, and subscribe.